Welcome back to Giant Monster Games. My name is Adrian, and today we are doing some map building because I just do not have time to make videos about Magic the Gathering, mostly because I have two twin boys now, if you haven't heard, which is why I haven't been making videos because I just haven't had any free time in a very long time, which has started freeing up now, and with my little free time that I have, I've started playing some Dungeons and Dragons, so that's the point of this video. We're going to be making a map. It's going to be a world map. It's going to be a map for Dungeons and Dragons. To start with, though, I went way down the rabbit hole. I went all the way down, where there's no rabbits in this rabbit hole. That's how far down I went. I started out with tectonic plates. I drew them on my map, did something like this. From here, I decided, where do these tectonic plates actually move? I then drew some arrows to show you where these tectonic plates actually move, so how they're moving relative to each other. And then I threw down a whole bunch of terrain. Yes, I say terrain, it's more like just land masses. Masses of land. This is what I laid everywhere. From here, I then went and did a height map, so I figured out where would the mountains be by the plates smashing into each other in different places, where islands would be by plates rubbing up against each other. From here, I then decided, okay, I need to actually figure out where all of my biomes realistically would be placed. I used a really cool technique where I figured out the idea of where the tidal currents and where hot water and cold water are flowing inside of my world. This is what I used to actually figure out where everything is flowing, so we know where has hotter temperatures, where there'd be more storms, where they would get more rain, or where you would get less rain. So I realistically placed my biomes. Again, things that would be tropical would be closer to the equator, certain things such as Mediterranean environments, or deserts, or polar ice caps. Where do those things actually go? Realistically place those. From here, we're actually going to jump into the actual map building now. So now that we're inside of a program called Wonderdraft, and we're actually going to build, by build I mean we're going to refine, we're going to make it look all nice and pretty because my biome placement map is really ugly. We're going to use this to actually place all of our biomes in the actual place. Then we're going to place some mountains down. Obviously, start with mountains. I'm starting with mountains because that makes sense to start with mountains. From here, we're going to place down all the other things. Usually going to start with the tropics, then work our way out. So we're going to go through and place everything. Once we get a little bit farther into the video, I'm going to start putting down names, so you guys can start thinking about what should we name certain areas here. I mean, what are the ocean names? What should the bays be called? What should the mountain ranges be called? What should the continents be called? Because we only have two major continents here. But we also have a bunch of larger islands or larger island chains, which we, once we dive in, again, this is the map. By the way, I didn't mention, the map itself is actually about 1/10 the size of Earth. So I didn't want to take on a project that was unachievably large, but it's large enough that we could really do a lot of stuff here. Like, the 1/10 the size of Earth is still as big. This entire map is a little bit bigger than the entire country of the United States of America, almost the size of Canada. So that's just the scale. So this is a huge map. It would take people months or weeks to travel from one side to the other, especially because there's large oceans in the way, so on and so forth. So keep this in mind. This is the idea of the map. And again, this is going to be a fantasy map. It's going to be used for D&D. So we need to be thinking about things like elves, things like dwarves, things like goblins and orcs, and all kinds of other cool races. Where do dragons come from in this map? So we're going to be thinking about all these things as we get farther into the series. Ideally, this is going to be a series once we build out this map. This is just going to be the first preliminary map, kind of lay out where everything is. Then we're going to start zooming in. So I'll let you guys decide. Again, throw your names and suggestions down below. What do you think we should name all the things? What should we zoom in on next so we can zoom on one of these continents or maybe an island chain or some of this? We're going to zoom in a bunch. We're going to detail it out even more so we can do a detailed map of that area. And then from there, we're also going to start figuring out who lives where. Where do elves come from? Where do orcs come from? As I already mentioned this stuff. So we're going to start figuring that stuff out. We can also take a little bit of a deep dive. What I figure we're going to do. We're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into where do elves come from in other D&D related things, in fantasy worlds? They come from forests, but do they come from tropical forests? Do they come from deciduous forests? Do they come from coniferous forests? And if they do, then what are the differentiations between there? Do elves sometimes live in desert areas? I don't think they do, but we can take a look into that. So we'll figure out where on the maps, theoretically, these creatures could live. Because I have a couple spots. I mean, the map actually turned out really, really neat. As I was building it, I was kind of tweaking things to make sure it was really fun. So we have some spots that are just monsoon all year round, it feels like. And there's a bunch of other spots that are just wide open deserts. So it's going to be really neat to kind of figure out who lives here, what is there. And then as we get deeper into figuring out who lives where, we can also start putting in some cool landmarkers. I keep seeing floating islands floating islands. We need floating islands in our world. So, okay, well, if we have floating islands, where do we have floating islands? Do they drift around the map? Are they stationary islands? Are they like, think of them, are they islands like you see in maybe Zendikar, if you're Magic, obviously, or in Avatar? Not the Last Airbender, but the blue creatures that, have mating rituals where they stick their hair together. If there's floating islands like that, where there's just these large floating islands that are just kind of locked in place, we can go down this road. Maybe we figure out like where do these exist, on the planet. Or something I see on a number of maps that I think is really interesting is that people have put in like this like area of corruption where there's like some dark magic spilling into the world, or maybe some planar magic that is spilling into the world, and it's changing the area around it. Usually they color it purple. Why? Purple is just the color they normally use for these things. So we can figure out maybe where on the map could we have that. Additionally, if we want to get into some other kind of interesting fantasy build stuff, we can say, okay, well, if we want a Mordor type place in our world, where would that be? What can we make that look like? Who's going to inhabit that area? Because we have it wide open here. So start thinking about this map. Start thinking about where you actually want us to dive into. At the end of the video, I start putting in a whole bunch of names. I kind of temporarily name everything. The world itself, I kind of want to stay with the world of Ralstone, because I can use that for naming the videos for the most part. But everything else you see on this map is wide open for naming. So please suggest names. I'm definitely not set on most of these names. A couple of them I like. Some of these names I like, but most of them I am not super sold on. But from there, that's the idea of this map. That's the idea of this project. That's the idea of this video series, because it's something that I can do. I can start making videos again for you guys. Start doing some fun stuff, and yeah, that's the whole idea here. Now, there's some interesting things. I want to kind of talk about the process here of now that we've played all these biomes, we've placed all these biomes, what lives where, what goes where. It's really interesting to see that like most things that I think of when I think of like a map, I think of like either deciduous trees or coniferous trees, and I think of like grasslands, and I think of like some mountains. I don't ever think when I'm building maps, and this is actually kind of why I started this project as well, because I was starting to build this map for this D&D campaign I'm running, and it was just kind of turning into like standard check all my boxes, where yes, there's broadleaf forests. There's not a ton of rain. There's a couple little grasslands, and it was starting to like just look like every single map I've ever built in my entire life, and every single map that I see, almost every single map, not every single map, but almost every single map that I see that's just getting posted up there. So I decided that maybe okay, we're not gonna go that route. Instead, what we're actually gonna do is we're going to figure out, okay, where is tropical lands? Where are deserts? Where are our like temperate rainforest? Where are our polar ice caps? Like if we're gonna build a settlement that is like in a frozen wasteland, like is in the north, we're talking about like Lord of the Game of Thrones, so north, where does Winterfell live on our map? And we can now place that because we have an idea of where the biomes actually live. So that's the broader strokes of that idea. So yes. Also, as you can see on our larger world map here, I haven't actually named any cities. I haven't named any anything like this. We're gonna deal with towns and cities and that stuff a little bit farther down the road, because I feel like that stuff is a little bit more important as you get farther down the project. So, to reiterate, to summarize my complete incoherent rambling, what we're gonna do, I want you guys leave comments in the comment below. What you think we should be naming these continents, and the bays and the oceans and all that kind of stuff. What should we be naming all these things? Throw out some names. What you can also do is start throwing out some ideas for continent names and places that we kind of want to see on the map. We can start figuring out where that is. And then I want you guys to decide on where we're going to zoom in on. Likely what we'll do is if we're going to choose an entire continent, so if we choose one of the two major continents, we'll probably zoom in like twice. It was a double the zoom in level. Otherwise, we will stay with the same zoom level. Or otherwise, we'll probably zoom in like 4 times. If it's like an island, we'll zoom in like 4 times, or maybe 8 times closer than it is now. Also, one huge thing I should point out. Right now, you don't see a lot of islands. You see some island chains, but like as soon as you start getting in closer to the coasts, we'll actually start breaking them apart more and getting more detail and stuff like that. So that's gonna be the plan for that. Yes. Okay. Until next time, though. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Ralstone making of continent for D&D map making thing. Yes. Oh wow. Yeah. I'm so descriptive. I'm so good at this game. Rusty. think I'm rusty, you guys. Yes. Okay, until next time, my name's Adrian. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to leave a comment on the video. Also, game like a giant monster if you really feel like that as well. All right, goodbye.